when you have a curious mind, what happens?
Well, again, we always talk about beginner's mind. If you're speaking to a third grade class and you ask them some questions, every hand will go up. But as we become adults, many times we start losing that curiosity for a lot of different reasons. But, no matter what area you're in your life, when you go to see your primary care doctor or your financial advisor, but the more curious you are, the more questions you ask, in the question reveals the answer. And that's where the dialogue starts getting, and you're like, oh, I never thought of that before. So when I sit down with people and talk to them about nutrition many times, I have to start uncovering and really talk about curiosity at the very beginning. So, for example, if my cholesterol is out of balance, you got to ask the question, why? What's causing that? Or if I am not sleeping or my energy level's low or whatever it might be, you start asking the why and what's behind it. And then from there you go into the beliefs, because a lot of people have these limiting beliefs. And once you uncover those two, now we can start getting somewhere and then really start talking about strategies and tactics to help people on their journey because everybody's in a different place. And I always talk about that. Growing up, I was not a healthy eater, but as I changed when I was eating, my skin got better, my digestion got better, and that was kind of my aha moment going into. And so that's why I was really excited to talk to you because you went to school later in life, as I did. I went to grad school a little bit later. But as you get that curiosity, then everything's possible. And I think that's what people understand, no matter what age you are, it's you always can improve. And that's what I always tell people. It's a journey and then you try to make it your own. I think that's where people get stuck. Like, I'm trying this diet and that. Well, it's not going to last because it's not your own and it's not what you want to do. So that's kind of where I begin with people, the curiosity, the beliefs, and then we get into the tactics and strategies and where they're currently at, and then what are some of the next steps.
What's your feelings with you mentioned Ozempic and some of those drugs that are out there, and I have my own kind of thought on this, and I talked to Justin Grinnell about this on one of the shows I did with him, and personally, I have my feelings, but I'd like to hear your take on that and some of those because I think they can be useful in a way, but I want to hear your take before I give you my
Yeah,
spin.
so my whole, I'm not an anti-medication person. I think medications can fit a role, but 90% of what we take from a medication standpoint is fixing the symptom. You have a headache, you take ibuprofen, or, reality is you're probably dehydrated and lacking magnesium. If my blood pressure is too high, probably your nervous system's out of balance and you're lacking certain nutrients. So my way as a private investigator, I'm like, let's just step back for a second. If you are medicated, not asking anybody to get off of medication, but let's look at it a little differently. And maybe one of your goals is you want to wean. I've never had anybody not get off a statin medication, working with their doctor if they want to do that. So to me, whether it's Ozempic and Wegovy and all these different diabetes medications, diabetes is not only preventable, it's reversible. But it's pretty easy to go down that path. And so that drug might be beneficial for somebody in extreme cases. My thing is in our society, as you know, that when you start doing this, you create paralysis in the gut, you start losing muscle. And as we age, the thing we want to hold on to or improve upon is muscle. And that's where these drugs are going to get sideways, in my opinion, down the road. So, extreme cases, yes. But to me, I have seen it. I've seen people take their A1C from over 10 to, you know, under 7. And I've seen it do it naturally. So I believe that it's possible to do it. And I believe it's possible to do it in a sustainable way. But as we're seeing it in the world today, whether it's TRT and Ozempic and whatever, it could be a path, but to me, it's too easy, and so people will choose that path. And reality is, when you choose easy, it's going to get hard. If you choose hard, it's going to get easier. And that's why I like when I'm seeing you with your knee replacement. I see the stuff you're putting out there. You're putting in the work.
It's a grind.
There's really no other choice if you want to get to where you want to be. So anyway, that's my feeling on some of the medications out there. Fixing the symptom, not fixing the source of the problem, could be a tool, but it's not where people begin.
It's exactly very, very close to what my feelings are with this, probably because I learned all this stuff from Chris and then continue to learn and continue to learn. My feeling on this is similar to what Chris was just saying. In extreme cases, if it can be a catalyst to that next thing for you,
Sure.
but that's it. I mean, that's it. That's this. It's just a tool, but you got to put in the work, everybody. You got to put in the work. Chris,
And
set up.
you got to get a little uncomfortable, as you said. You got to put the work and get a little uncomfortable. But it's like you and I when we competed in bodybuilding. It's uncomfortable, but it's really a pretty exciting journey.
I looked at that picture. I have a picture framed in our house in Wisconsin, and I posted it on our story on Facebook the other day. And it's just like it's 15 years ago, my once and only with Chris Johnson. It was such an experience. Chris got us in there. Reggie was there. It was so awesome, and it just proved that you climb these mountains, everybody, and that's the thing. I was a rookie with Chris Johnson, never done this before, rookie at just about 51 years old. It's just amazing. Chris, I only
Yeah.
got about a minute to go before break.
Yeah.
But when we come back, I want to talk a lot about the food target because the food target it was the beginning of the whole thing. Can you set that up, please?
Yeah, so when I worked at the Michigan Athletic Club, I was director of health and fitness, and we had one of the largest personal training programs in the country. And this was back in the 90s and early 2000. But people were struggling with diets, and everybody was on a diet. And I was working with one of my mentors, Al Arns, and we were talking one day, and I was like, I was developing this like stoplight with the target, and so we started morphing with that, and we looked at, how do you get people to upgrade? Here's the red area, which is kind of foods that are not healthy for you, and then the green are the go. And so we started morphing with that, and then that led to we kind of had different additions of it, and then it was a simple tool that people could start understanding how to upgrade versus making it more difficult. So that's the genesis of the food target in 1994.
So, Chris, let's just start at the top. I mean, just
Yeah.
it's broke into three different components, and it goes from the outside in. It's just a target, everybody.
Yeah, so
So
it's big. Envision this as it's a big circle, and the red, which is the pore, is in the outer rim. And then I go to a slightly more kind of a yellowish color, and that's
give us
going
some
to,
examples. Give us some examples of those foods. Like talk about fats in the red zone, Chris.
well, in the red zone might be like a Jif peanut butter. It's a trans fat, very unhealthy, or seed oils. People talk a lot about corn oil and canola oil, whatever. That's going to be the outer rim. So it's broken into three macronutrients, carbohydrates at the top, and then we have fats and proteins. So if you took a fat and you said, okay, how do I make that better? Well, I like peanut butter, Chris. Well, let's not eat the processed hydrogenated trans fat. We can slowly move to the center, or maybe we move into an almond or a cashew butter. So now we keep moving towards the center, and I'm not getting rid of anything. I'm just making it better. If I'm eating over here in the proteins, they're no different. If I'm eating a hot dog or a bacon, maybe I go to a nitrate-free bacon, maybe move in a little bit, but then we move into the middle, and you got wild Alaskan salmon and organic chicken and nuts and seeds and things like that. So that's what it's broken down into three macronutrients, and then you're just slowly taking a look at what. And it's amazing. People say to me at the beginning, "Well, what about this food?" I said, "Well, I can't fit every food in the target, but you get a gist: fruits, vegetables, or ancient grains. Those are going to be more in the center of the carbohydrates, and the same thing with proteins and fats." So it's just a tool to help people be more intentional about how they eat. And again, it's funny because many of the kids will say to their parents, "Hey, you're eating in the red area." So they become the food police, and they're saying, "Hey, I need to eat more in the green area." So anyway, that's on our website. It's a free download. You can get a feel for that if you're listening to the radio.
If we would have had the food target, if we would have known in the 70s what we know now, would we be bigger kids? Would we be would not would you get hurt as much? Because you're right. I mean, if there was Captain Crunch in the cupboard, it was gone. I mean, it
Oh
was
yeah.
just gone.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like when I was at Sexton, we could go out for lunch. You could go
Mhm.
to McDonald's or Burger King.
Yep.
But all of us that played football and sports, we all ate the cafeteria meal, which was so much better. And the lunch ladies, again, being biased here, but they were lunch ladies, and we knew them like our mom, and they were incredible. And that was all homemade stuff. So even though we didn't really know what we're doing, at least we're eating homemade. And my daughter Kristen always says, if you eat more at home, that's half the battle right there. So we didn't know what we were doing, but we were eating our lunches in the cafeteria at Sexton way back in the day, and we loved it.
Chris, you were just talking about those four items: food is love, social, medicine, information. I just found that I don't think I'd ever heard that before. And I've got huge right in the middle of my notes here. And I'd love for you to kind of explain that. You were talking a little bit about epigenetics during break. Please explain that a little bit deeper for everybody. Would you please?
Yeah, so when people think of nutrition, you got two camps. I want this to taste really good, and then I want to be super healthy. Well, okay, what if you could have both? So the
Exactly.
love and the social is okay, you're making food, it's social, it's love, it's all that stuff. But then can we make it healthier? Because food is, medicine for the body, no doubt about it. When you give omega-3 fats, you B vitamins and those, that's medicine. That's the raw material for the body to the mind and body all connected. Gut health, you talk a lot about that and stuff. And then
Mhm.
it's information. And we talk about epigenetics, which is above genetics. People say all the time, well, I got bad genetics. Well, I probably disagree because your behavior trumps genetics. So that's called epigenetics, and that's information. So when you put those four together, love, social, medicine, and information, now you're kind of singing. And so now my body is doing what I want it to do, but I'm not giving up anything. I'm just, and my wife will tell you if, his last supper would be probably XYZ and it's not eating a bunch of crap. So I think when people slowly move that, and you know this too, as you eat healthy, your taste buds start to change. That Jif peanut butter when I grew up on, it tastes like sugar now. It just doesn't taste good at all. So that's where we start transitioning. And like your daughter Lauren, it's just a slow transition. And that's really the magic of when you teach people how to fish. And that's what we're trying to talk about today.
It was the eating, it was the social that you were talking about, the Mediterranean, the Mediterranean kind of thought process, right? Can you talk about the blue zones?
Well, the blue zones, as you mentioned, are pockets around the world. And what they really were looking at is that people that lived a certain lifestyle wasn't genetics. That's the whole thing about blue zones. Once they live in this pocket and they adopted these healthy lifestyles, they live longer. And they're not only living longer, they're living vibrantly. I mean, if you ever watch any of that stuff, look at it, and you see these guys riding horses or women doing this and that, it's incredible. So to me, I think as people age, it's not about just aging, it's about vibrancy. I mean, you and me both, I still want to snow ski and water ski, but that's where nutrition comes in. Jack LaLanne always said that, nutrition is the queen and exercise is the king. I would kind of reverse that. I would look at nutrition as king, exercise as queen. I would reverse that a little bit because when you think about nutrition, it's still in the infancy stage. We don't really understand that. But when you look at food as medicine and information, wow, we start putting it together. And I've seen transformations. You've seen transformations when people start changing this stuff. So, but you got to do it in a way that people want to move in that direction. And I think that's the challenge in our society today. They think they either have to eat all this that they think tastes good, but it's not healthy. And the reality is you can have both.
The five things he had five things that he wanted to share. You got a good 5 minutes here, bro. We'll talk about that. Let's go for it. What
Okay.
were those five things you'd like to talk about?
When I sit down with people, you want to make it simple. Like, how do I make this simple walking away? So, number one today is focus on what you drink. Just be intentional about it. How much water are you drinking? 50 ounces a day is the minimum. People say half your body weight. Just start with, are you drinking 50 ounces a day? And look at what other beverages you consume. You talked about coffee earlier, whatever, but just really be intentional about what are you drinking. Energy drinks are off the table. If you're drinking soda pop, start limiting that. There's lots of ways you can improve that, like a mineral water with a shot of juice. But that's where I begin. Water with lemon is incredible for gut health, pH balance. But start with your beverages and make sure you're getting your water. That's where we begin. Start with your water, make sure you're getting enough. Then from there, we look at what nutrients are you missing. So when I sit down with people, the first thing I look at, are you consuming omega-3 fats? That's the cod liver oil, that's the flax seeds, that's the walnuts. Don't make it harder than that. Get that in your diet. It's good for brain health, heart health, inflammation, hormones. Then from here, on top of the other superfood we recommend is get some chlorophyll in your diet. That's greens. That could be bok choy, spinach, kale, broccoli, asparagus. We would like to promote, as you mentioned, wheatgrass, spirulina crulla. Get greens. So I go, what am I drinking? What superfoods am I missing? The omega-3s and the chlorophyll, the greens. And then from there, number three, we start looking at upgrading what you currently are eating. Pull out that food target. Whatever you're eating or drinking or whatever, how do I make that better? How do I upgrade it? Make it better. Okay. Number four, I want you to fast 12 to 14 hours overnight. It's not hard. We don't have to do intermittent fasting. That's can be great if you know what you're doing, but that's something you need to know what you're doing. But everybody can fast overnight, 12 to 14 hours. That's called autophagy, allows the body to clean. And the last one is the 80-20 rule. This is my daughter talks all the time. If you're going out to dinner, you're going out to a party, whatever, just be intentional. If I want a glass of wine, I want the bread with the olive oil, don't just let it go. Be intentional about that. 80% of the time I'm dialed in, 20% of the time I'm letting my hair down. So again, holidays are coming, Halloween's coming, Christmas, Thanksgiving. The goal is you're trying to create a lifestyle that you're not 50-50, you're more like an 80-20. So those are the five things I like to teach that people go, hey, I can do that. I can do that. And that's really where you start creating some momentum and then some habit building. And that's really where start people getting excited about that.
To this, once you understand it, you don't have to eat all that food that's put in front of you.
But like
You can,
Tom, like you said, you are intentional about taking that food home. You are intentional. If I'm going to eat bread, the only bread I'm going to eat is my wife's or my daughter's sourdough bread. So I'm going to be intentional about that. Or if I want a cocktail or a glass of wine, I'm going to be intentional. Tonight, I'm not, no, I'm not doing that. But if I want that, then there's the guilt zone is gone, right? And I think that's where people get, coming in, I'm good. But if I do wish to do that, I'm enjoying it, and that's really where people get sideways. So I love what you just said there, but I'm intentional about when I go out to dinner.
Chris Johnson. If I talk too much about Chris Johnson, I'll start crying. I swear to God, because he's just, God, he's just been so impactful in my life, Sandy's life. So many people across mid Michigan, across the world. I am not kidding you. The food target is where it's at. On target living is the real freaking deal, everybody. I'm trying to not curse as much. I might try New Year's. I can't, sometimes I just can't help it. Gotta curse. It's all for emphasis. But I tell you, I do truly, 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 truly love Chris Johnson because he's helped us so much. And what he's done, food is love, food is social, food is medicine, food is information. I hadn't heard that before. So until next time, everybody, you've been listening to the Tom Matt Show, watching the Tom Matt Show, doing that thing. I'm so glad to have you guys around. And thank you so much for putting up with us and listening to us for 15 years. It's awesome. And I hope you want, if you're getting close to the refinement zone, send me a note. Welcome. Just like Joan Wright and Williamston, everybody has a little bit of need for something. And we want to help you get better. Until next time, everybody. Peace out. Love y'all. Have a great day. Been listening to the Tom Matt Show. Please subscribe, do all those good things. And I'm done. Thank you.